Thanks for joining us for another episode of the Planify Podcast. Today, I'm really excited to have my good friend Kenny Jahng join me. And Kenny is an entrepreneur, but he has a unique journey. So you'll hear more from him about that, going from MBA to big corporate Fortune 100 marketing PR guy to MDiv, Master of Divinity, and ministry orientation, also back into business. And one of the things you'll learn about Kenny is he really has a passion for the everyday entrepreneur and helping empower people, creating community. In this episode, we talk about the real loneliness epidemic happening in business and in leadership, and for men specifically. We talk about how having a community of other business leaders to sharpen each other is very important. And then we also explore some of the work he are doing right now, helping onboard people onto AI in a very productive way. And so I'm really excited to have Kenny Jahng, and I know you'll enjoy this episode. Hey, Kenny, thanks for joining me on the show today. I'm so happy to be with you. You've been such a good friend for the last 6-7 years plus now. And so really excited for our listeners to learn from you and grow. So why don't you just take a few minutes and share a little bit of your background, and then we'll start digging into things you're working on today.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on. I love hanging out with you. We have a little bit too much fun whenever we're together.
We do.
My background, I'm an entrepreneur. I was trained in the marketplace, Fortune 100, advertising agency, PR, direct marketing. And then I made a pivot. Went to seminary, got a Master's of Divinity, which is like the general purpose degree for pastors. And then I went into ministry. And that is when I basically took all these marketplace best practices and principles and have started to basically bring them to ministry in the church, right? And finding ways to translate, be that translator from things that they don't teach you in seminary, right? And how to actually apply that in a way that has impact and steward the education, all the mistakes in entrepreneurship, all the lessons learned, and bring them along for ministry and nonprofits and companies that are now basically in that the kingdom realm of nonprofits and ministries.
Yeah, it's always been fun to watch you work. I've worked with you as you served other businesses. Yeah. I've worked with you as you serve church leaders, and just the way your brain dynamically puts things together. And one of the things you and I were talking about before we began recording is that just really rang true for me. And my experience with you is that you really have a passion to help the everyday entrepreneur. Right. And so we talked about, hey, for people that are just getting started, there's environments for them just getting started, or for people that are quote unquote crushing it, they have the elite level masterminds. But you've served so faithfully the everyday entrepreneur that's grinding it out day to day and giving them environments. And you have a unique gift of pulling people together, bringing people together and bringing that. Because let's be honest, if you stayed out in corporate world, it would have been far more financially lucrative of you applying your skills outside of that. And it's not that you haven't done well for yourself, but it's definitely, there is an element of call and service to people that are leading that direction, right? And so, talk a little bit about your passion for the everyday entrepreneur and how that's grown over the last several years. I mean, going into the pandemic, coming out of the pandemic, as technology increases, how have you thought through that? I mean, you have a very prestigious MBA. Then you also have a very prestigious MDiv, right? I have an MDiv I was looking at a chart Ed Stetzer put out today that my MDiv school's growth has declined by 20%, while all the other ones are growing. So like I've been at kind of the ground level MDiv. You have been at the top tier MDiv, like you're in that world, but you serve the everyday pastor. It's not that, mega churches haven't called you in for help, but ultimately you really have a passion to help the entrepreneur that's showing up every day, doing the work, and really trying to create environments and relational connection with other entrepreneurs going that direction. So talk us through that progression over the last several years.
Yeah, I think it was a natural one, coming from the marketplace with some, decades of experience, and then making the shift into ministry and nonprofit world. You don't leave behind the business sense, and you don't leave behind the entrepreneurialism. And so that's where I feel like I've met so many other individuals, leaders like yourself and others, where we're all just trying to make a little dent in the kingdom, right? And how do we actually do that? there is no instruction manual for the everyday entrepreneur, right? There's all these courses and plans, and like my MBA, they have like structured, curriculums for how things are supposed to be. But once you get into the thick of it, it's a little bit lonely. And again, it's uncharted waters. And I think the one thing that I learned relatively early on, and it only is being reinforced as I get older, is that it is better to learn together with others on the same journey. And I think you have to find a way to get out of the compartmentalism that we have in entrepreneurship at times, that we are just heads down working our own venture, our own objective, our own campaigns, and figure out how to connect with others around us. And so that's been life serving to me. And it's just something that now it's part of my playbook, that whatever we try to do, can you find others around you that are like-minded, growth-minded, that are abundance-minded, not scarcity-minded, so that we can actually share and grow and encourage each other together.
So one of the things I remember is you invited me. I was transitioning out of full-time pastorate to come be a part of a mastermind group with other entrepreneurs and business owners. But what was unique is you were helping put that on with your own mastermind that at that time you'd already been in a part of that same group for quite some time. So not only are you, I've been to many things where people are putting things on, but they themselves are not participating in a similar environment. And it always struck me that you had a group of other business owners that you had been running with for quite some time that had been sharpening you over the years. I believe you guys are still meeting, if social media serves me correctly. Like you guys are still gathering and spurring each other on and going through life transitions and hardships and wins. So that was an important learning. The number two thing that was really stood out for me when I was able to come to that massive log cabin in Utah was that it wasn't just about everyone having to put forward their best effort and say, this is all the wins I've had, but hey, here's where I'm struggling. Here's how I feel like I messed up and I don't really know what to do.
Yeah.
And it was such a relief to hear other people say, oh man, I went through that as well. Here's some things I tried or did. But it wasn't just all, crush it, crush it, crush it. It was, I'm being crushed. What are some ways out? And you guys had a part of that workshop where it's like, hey, we're going to build right now together and clarify your offer and have something for you to go home and execute, which I thought was very unique. It wasn't just concepts. It was also proactivity. And so as you've iterated, I mean, that was pre-pandemic time when I was at that event with you. How has that matured? I mean, you have some online communities, you have in-person communities, but as over the last few years, you're posting a lot too. You're one of the few people on social that I actually stop anytime I see a post by you and read it and flag it.
You're the one.
Say that's interesting. I'm the one. Yeah, I'm the one that fanboys it and everything else. But you're speaking a lot lately about the need for community, not only as the church is fumbling around trying to figure out what to do, but just this idea that there's a profound, I would say, loneliness epidemic, right? Not only for entrepreneurs, but in culture. But I'm noticing that specifically with entrepreneurs because there aren't people just generously saying, hey, we've been there, come struggle and fall forward. So over the last few years, how have you have things improved, gotten worse? What do you think are some contributing factors there just in the lives of business leaders and church leaders?
There's so much to say on this, Casey. So one, I think the profile of the entrepreneur tends to be try to figure out on your own. And it's one of those things where if you find a partner or partners, you have multiplicative effect of trying to go forward faster. If you don't have formal partners, the best way to do that is just, like the adage says, is you are the average of the 5 people that you surround yourself with. And so that mastermind group, I started, I think it's coming on 10 years now that we've been meeting regularly. And the idea there is in our group alone, we've figured out, like, again, we cannot just be siloed ourselves. How do we have input and actually bring life to the group and also bring our life to others? And that's what we've done. We've opened up our events and our retreats and things like that to others to participate in. And then you get a mix, I think, of this core expertise and trust and friendship and modeling of good behavior in an event like that, because many people have never heard of a mastermind or they've never been to a mastermind retreat. It could be intimidating to others. And so having that core base there is a safety, button there for some people. And then you bring other people in. So I don't know, that's been life serving. But the loneliness thing is, I think, there's many trajectories that are contributing to our loneliness epidemic. And I think you look at social media and the algorithm that has not been a good grand experiment on society and culture, et cetera, right? Like, and then for you and me as men, men are reporting right now that there's like a fivefold increase of people who have zero close friends. I think now up to 15%, more than 15% of men, adult men, are reporting that they have zero close friends. They do not have someone they can call, like I can call you or you can call me. And that is, I think, just something that you have to fight. You have to figure out how to get out of that, right? And so, in business and also for personal friendships, I think this is where we have to figure out a different way of living and of doing work. And then, if you and I are Christians, this faith and work perspective of integrating our lives together, I think that is something that we need to think about and talk about. So anyway, I'm gravitating toward how do I host and facilitate and encourage people to come into my spheres of influence, our circles, but also start your own. Right. And we know, again, I think the stat I saw recently was 40% of men are feeling like true loneliness at least once a week right now. 1 out of 6 Americans feel lonely all the time. That's incredible. That is incredible. And so how do we that have agency choose to actually do something about it? And it doesn't take that much. And what's interesting to me, Casey, is I think this week I just posted something on social about outreach. And so there's all these people that talk about church outreach strategies and all that, these convoluted things that need budget and all that kind of stuff. And the average church is still sub 100 people. They don't have a lot of money. And the strategy I wrote about is challenge yourself in June, this next month, to just invite someone over in your circles, on the edges and fringes of your friendship circles, just once over to dinner. And the cost would be just to make one extra serving at dinner or lunch, just one extra plate of serving for food. That's your budget. Can you get your church to all do that? I think our communities would be in a such better place if we could get our families that are involved with our communities to do that with just one person once a month for the rest of the year. I don't know. It's mind blowing to some people though. So like the response is just really interesting where they're like, wow, that's groundbreaking. That is truly creative. That is something that's challenging. Why is that, Casey? Why is the idea of just inviting someone over for dinner that you're not friends with, that you don't have real good rapport with yet? Why is that groundbreaking? I don't know, Casey. Do you have any insight on that?
I have a few thoughts. Number one, it's convicting for me because pre-pandemic, Stephanie and I were quite hospitable,
Yes.
outgoing, doing stuff. When we had the pandemic, what happened was a couple things positive happened. One, we were forced to slow down a little bit and rethink things, right? And so that was helpful. And we realized, hey, we like being alone at our house. We got selfish though, and now kind of prefer slowing down and just being us, right? So I think there is an overcorrection in that direction.
Yeah.
And whether the masks work or not, I'm not here to fight about the biology of it, but there was a social limiter where if you really wanted to see someone's face, it was either like this over a screen or on social, but in person for an elongated period of time, there was that differentiator that I think, Stephanie was telling me about a study she had read of the advent of Botox is making it more difficult for children to understand emotion because, my mom didn't have Botox. So I knew when mom was mad, I could tell it in her eyes, right? I knew when she was sad, the facial expressions were there.
Yes.
But like legitimately they're having things. And so you think through social cues and social interactions, and then everyone is self-editing for social posts or whatever, that we're living life as if it's an affinity algorithm that is then forcing us to identify people that fully agree with us, fully are in line. Otherwise, it's very dangerous or risky to engage relationally. There's this budgeting that I see happening in my own soul that I have to actively fight against. So, like, man, and then as we get older, the energy to start a new relationship, right? And realize that they're a little bit different than I am, or they prefer things different. I think people have to reclaim, like, okay, where did we come from? Why are we here? And what's one step I can take? And I think that's why it was so groundbreaking. For you, it's just overly simple. Like, hey, it costs $9 extra for a serving of pasta and some drinks, right? Like, like that's the budget, right? And if you can't do that, the church will offset that. Bring your grocery bill, will help, whatever. But I think it is groundbreaking because we've overcomplicated so much of, think about it. The place we used to live before we moved back to Brenham was so fast paced that unless someone was having a code red crisis, it was 2 to 3 weeks before they had time, because Timmy's in select ball, Marianne's in select gymnastics, and dad's got 3 business trips, mom's got her book clubs. And where do you find time for that? So I think time, budget. I think second of all, I think the relational capacity to expand into new territory and think through, man, how many years is it going to take to have a meaningful relationship? One of the things I was talking to my daughter about was not everyone, she's 19 at college, and she went from a class of 4 in her homeschool group to 70,000 students at Texas A&M, right? And one of the things, she felt relationally overwhelmed, and she said, hey, what do? I said, you have to think in concentric circles, that not everyone you spend a little time with has to become your best friend, right? You can be friendly, you can be colleagues, you can be acquaintances, but it's worth taking that risk. And as a believer, investing in souls and saying, I can afford one meal to invite them into my community, and even invite another more outgoing friend over. It's the extrovert trick, that if you're introverted, find a friend that's more extrovert that just can't wait to meet new people and bring them in. Which then leads me to my next thing, where people have forgotten how to be in community and business, because I saw your rant online the other day about people coming into groups and just viewing it as a desperate targeting for people. And I think that needed to be said, because I'm a part of a collaboration group that, they're helping structure collaborations with people, but there are certain people that are just pitching their, not really, at least that's not how I'm experiencing it. They're coming into a platform and not really looking for collaborators, but it seems like they're just trying to generate leads. And so I think we've forgotten how to act appropriately in context and what is the purpose of this. And so share a little bit about it, because I think that's important for our listeners. If they're a part of even if it's a business networking group, like, rehumanize each other and actually get to know the soul you're talking to, rather than just pitching your idea.
Yeah, Mel Robbins has a great book called The Let Them Theory. And the real magic of that book is not about, hey, let them do whatever they're doing, but it's let me. And she talks about also that friendship and relationships. And I think this goes with, personal and business. But I think she nails it when she says, friendship goes from a group sport to an individual sport the moment you become an adult, right? So, and I will add, when you become an entrepreneur, it just becomes even harder, because now you're operating on a completely different frequency than most people around you, right? Like, people who have a job at a company and they go to a workplace is a very different frequency of thinking and mindset than a business owner and entrepreneur. And I think most entrepreneurs are still waiting for community to come to them, because when you were a kid, when you were in school, everything is organized, everything is organized around you. Everything is provided for you. You're in the same life stages. And so it's like you're playing a group sport game, but now you're still in this, world where, oh no, rules have changed. We're now at an individual sport level. And so I think that's where I think we need to go back to basics and really understand what it takes to build these relationships. And she talks about, I think there's these 3 pillars. You need proximity, you need timing, and you need energy. And you need all these pillars for the relationships to actually happen and gel. And when any one of those pillars falls away, that's when the relationship drifts. Not because it's a fight or betrayal or they don't like you or, that they're better than, it's just because nobody's steering the relationship sometimes. And I think this is where you need to go first. So let them do whatever they want and feel, but you have agency. I think that's
Yeah.
the big idea that at least I've been trying to live out the last decade or so. As I've gotten older, I'm finally learning some principles of life, right? Most people wait. And I think, the point that the person who's willing to go first is the one that builds the relationships and the circles and actually has life-serving interactions for themselves, but also for others. And how do you build that social scaffolding that holds people together? And then that's where deep relationships happen, like in our mastermind group and all these other things that I'm starting.
And to help the entrepreneur that is, maybe early on or doesn't have table manners yet and
Yes.
coming in, right?
Yes.
It's kind of like down here in Texas, there's a bunch of deer hunters, right? And so there's different type of deer hunters. There's a trophy hunter that wants to find the right buck with the big antlers and the rag
Yes.
for their wall. And then there's the hunter that really likes venison. They like deer and meat. And sometimes they like both. But the way they view those animals when they see them on the side of the road and the way I view them are different because I'm not a hunter. So I'm like, oh, that's a pretty animal, right? What they're seeing is trophy or food. And their response is different. And so I think some entrepreneurs are still in survival mode or growth mode or trying to, live into their own insecurities. And so they're like, I'm in a group with a bunch of people that I could do business with. And instead of saying, man, isn't it great to be here? I'd love to get to know some of these people. They pull out their proverbial gun and start looking for the next meal. And so I think but that's why we need what you're doing to help people know how to be, one, how to be friends as adults. Number two, how to be abundance mindset entrepreneurs. And three, how that we're all on a journey still learning together. So I think it would be a good time now to talk about, you and I both love AI and hate AI and have tension with AI and work with AI, but you started this new group for specifically helping people with Claude. So why don't you share a little bit about that? Because I think it's very important for a lot of our viewers are interested in AI and share what you're doing and maybe where they can learn more about it.
Oh, yeah. Well, again, I think this was the same impulse, right? So Claude is the media darling right now. If you're on social and scrolling and in the AI world, everyone is talking about Claude. It is in this arms race of AI. It is just a step ahead right now. They're all going to catch up with each other.
Oh, of course.
But so we started this thing called Claude Collective. It's simple. It's a group of entrepreneurs, operators, leaders, builders, trying to learn Claude Cowork, Claude Code, Claude Design all together because no one's figured this out alone. There's no instruction manual for Claude. There's no course that's going to catch you up to what this technology is or can do for everything that they're releasing on a almost bi-weekly basis right now, right? And so it's like the mastermind groups, Casey. You need a place where your failure is not a loss. I think this is one of those things that is very important. When failure isn't a loss, it's actually a gain. That's something you can contribute to everybody. Sure, you can share the magic tricks and the best practices and all the things they figured out, but even the things where you tried something that didn't work out well, and when you share it, you're helping somebody else get ahead, right? And so you just saved someone else in the room that's was going to waste a week on the same thing or similar thing. So I think we're trying to reframe that with AI specifically because any misaligned prompt or workflow that collapsed, that's just a data point that helps us get further together. And so this is why I think community is the antidote to stagnation. And this is where I think it's resonating. We've got, dozens and dozens of people joining this thing. It's still growing. And I think it's just building steam. And then you have the collective brain, right? We have a repository of learnings. And so I think the value of that's the network effect in action. The value of the learning together is when we have everybody just contributing things to the pot so that everyone benefits together. That's where we're going. So anyway, that's what Claude Collective is. It's the same playbook, really, Casey. It's the latest thing that is the target of what you want to learn and what you want to grow about.
So Kenny, as you work with AI, I'm hearing a lot of business owners not really know where to get started. They might be using it themselves, but I was sitting with a client recently. I'm helping them build a few things for their business. And they're like, it's just so overwhelming, everything coming out. We're not sure
Yeah.
what's going to be used where or whatever. I know you work with a lot of different organizations and are sought out by a lot of different places. As business owners at various stages of leveraging AI in general, how have you been encouraging them to approach it? Definitely join Claude Collective,
Yeah.
but what are some other things that you've been thinking through that? Because like, we don't want to dehumanize people. I always tell
Yeah.
people I want AI to enhance human existence, not replace it.
Yeah.
Right. In worth and value, because you and I both believe we were meant to work. And so there is meaningful work, but work is dynamically changing. Marketing's changing. People not sure what to do for their business and how to do for their business. And so, you've been around the block a few times and have seen some things. And so how are you encouraging people right now to think through this as it pertains to their work as an entrepreneur and beyond?
Absolutely. So you got to remember, AI just came out. Like everyone talks about it as if it's been around for decades. Generative AI just came out in November 22. We're here in 26. It's not that long. And so everyone is a beginner, right? Every expert guru that you see posting about AI, they were completely lost 6 months ago, 9 months ago, right? So the gap between where you are right now, where you feel like you are versus where they are is much smaller than you think. And I think I want to give you permission to be the beginner because that gap can close really quickly the more you go into it. So I want to give anybody who's starting out full permission to be like quotes bad at this thing. But the only way to get good at it is putting in the reps. There's no other path, right? And so the people who win with AI, they're the ones that are going to just get started before they feel ready. And I think that's where I say, when we're coaching somebody, we start with the WIFM, the what's in it for me. We don't start with like, oh, what's on your work and how do we like replace, workflows or teams and like start with something personal. So what is it, something that you want to learn about, something that you're interested in, and start there. And you just ask questions. And in fact, the one thing that I just shared with someone else was you should treat the AI as someone, it's like Inception. Help it, help you, help it. And so that's where you say, hey, I want to start with AI. I don't know where to begin. Lead me. Ask me the questions on how to begin. And that's the number one step I would do. Like, I think that should be on the, the shiny package that we rip open and open the box and there's this thing called AI come out. The first instruction should just be, ask me what I can do or ask me how to help you. And I think that's square one, right?
100%. And I think with that in mind, Kenny, like, I've met one AI expert that's been in it longer since 2022, right? And he has a PhD in artificial intelligence, from like 2007, right? Thinking about, for guys like us using Zapier, that's artificial intelligence with human guidance, right? And so I've met one literally from Japan who actually is more of an AI expert, but use cases for everyday mankind is a new iteration for everybody, right? And so when you look at it, what I always tell people is, if you want to use AI well, it's going to force you back to the basic business fundamentals, right? Of what is my process to do this? What am I manually having to do? What am I doing repetitively? And I tell people, do not automate or make it agentic a bad process, because it'll amplify poor processes.
Yes.
Right. And so it's like, it's somewhat a gift that you're not just setting it loose on it. It'll force you to go back to the basic business fundamentals of, if our ideal client is connected with us, going up the value ladder, getting more and more value from us, what is that experience? Now, what are those repetitive things that are sticking points? How do we apply AI in that situation? But helping demystify it, because what you just said, have AI help you, help AI help you, right? And I think that is a brilliant way to posit it in saying, hey, let's test. I remember when I got my first graphing calculator, Texas Instrument graphing calculator, right? And it was like, I didn't know how all that worked. I just started playing with it. And then I hung out with other friends who knew how to use it. And then I paid attention when they were teaching. But also I had to understand basic arithmetic to understand how numbers and things work, right? And so whatever new technology that once was, I remember the first time my wife got an iPhone from a flip phone and watching her try to figure it out. And I said, you just have to mess up a little bit and get
Yeah.
frustrated. And fortunately, it was intuitive and everything. But I think we because, for market, and it's super, advantageous for entrepreneurs to say, oh, I'm an expert at such and such. You're actually probably a week ahead,
Yeah.
maybe, of some people, but quite honestly, you're not there. So tell us where people can find you online, man. It's been great chatting with you. Where can people keep up with you and, join, the Claude group and everything else?
Yeah. You can find me on LinkedIn and Instagram. Right now are my native channels that I'm posting and publishing and connecting with people. If you're a church leader, aiforchurchleaders.com is the place to connect there. We've monthly workshops and a training library and online conferences and all that stuff. And then on the business side, if you are interested in learning about Claude, or if you are looking for training, et cetera, on the AI stuff, we have stackhouseventures.com. If you go to stackhouseventures.com/Claude, that will start you down the journey on that path. But I think, the number one thing I would say, Casey, is that anyone who's listening here and feeling like they're behind, it's normal. You're exactly where most people are. And the big thing, though, I think the challenge in the call is the entrepreneurs who figure this out in the next 12 months, they're not going to have an advantage. They're going to have an unfair advantage. And that's the moment we're in now.
I think I couldn't say any better. And so we'll end this episode here. Kenny, thanks so much for joining us, man. I'm sure we'll do this again.